Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking. This is Extraordinary Adventures Pirates. This is the brand new game from Forbidden Games, the company that's run by Glenn Drover. And a few years ago, actually more than a few years ago, more like 5 years ago or so, one of the cool things about our hobby is that it's so... I don't know what's word I'm looking. It's so small. I mean, it's getting bigger, right? And it feels big sometimes, but it's relatively small. And one of the really cool things is that when you go to conventions, you can usually meet designers and publishers that you really like. You know, that you've played their games, you think they're amazing, and just to be able to talk to them and talk about your experiences with their games, it's one of those really cool, awesome things about this hobby, and it's just, I hope that never changes. And I was extremely lucky, and I know this is going to sound like I'm doing a name dropping thing here, but I was extremely lucky in, I was in a situation where I got to meet Glenn Drover, who, has definitely designed, many games, things that I've enjoyed. But I actually, got invited to his home, and I ended up actually hanging out there and playing games with him and playtesting things. And I actually played a really early version of this game several years ago. At that time, it was a game that was based on, the Jules Verne, Around the World in 80 Days, and that kind of thing, and it had the Nautilus in there, and it was a really cool game, but it was like a race game along with a deck building game where people were trying to move on these different tracks and trying to collect victory points, but everybody was trying to get around the world as fast as they possibly could. And I always was kind of sad that game never came out, because I really dug the theme and I really dug the art. And it was one of those things where Glenn actually mentioned to me a little while back, he's like, remember that game you played? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, we're going to do it, but we're going to switch it up. We're going to do it in this Pirates theme. And it's going to be all about traveling down the Spanish Main and trying to, collect as much treasure as you possibly can as you go. And then you're all racing to catch up with the treasure barges that, the galleons that the Spanish had. And I was like, that sounds really cool. And I was really excited to play it. So then he told me that he went on, I forget the name of the artist, and I do apologize for that, but the artist that did all the art in this game is like a Disney artist, hardcore Disney animation artist. And you can kind of probably tell just by looking at the box cover right there. So it was one of those things where it's it combined, for me, really amazing art with a cool theme, with a really fun game as well. But let me show you how the game is played, and then we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts, as I always do. Alright, so here's the board for Extraordinary Adventures, and as I said, this game is beautiful. The board artwork is amazing, the card artwork is amazing. The designers really went out of the way to make sure that the game just looks fantastic when it's on your table. But regardless to anything about how it looks like, let's just actually talk about what you're looking at and show you how to play the game. Alright, so each player is going to have 3 pirate ships, and you're going to place those pirate ships in the starting areas. There's one here in St. Augustine, there's one here in Havana, and there's one here in Grand Granada. Your goal in this game is to get your pirate ships to here, to Trinidad. The first person who gets there basically gets the reward because they've captured the Spanish treasure fleet by getting to Trinidad first. And they get, for being in first place, they're going to get victory points for doing so. Now, it doesn't matter which one of the 3 tracks you use to get there. It's just got to be one of your ships. And it isn't a situation where you have to get all of your ships either. It just means one ship has to get there. Now, along the way, you might be seeing all these little wooden cubes everywhere. These are merchant ships. And on each one of these merchant ships, you can see there's merchant ship, there's 2 dots below this one. That means it has 2 goods. Now, these goods, by me, were drawn randomly out of this bag. And there's still some cubes in there because sometimes you'll get to put cubes back on the board, or you get to draw cubes out of the bag. But regardless, when you as a pirate get to this place, get to these merchant ships first, you're considered to have captured that ship. You're going to get those cubes, and you're also going to get to draw a merchant crewman, which is going to be added to your deck of cards. And I'll explain your deck of cards here in just a moment. Also, there are these circles here. These are ports. When you go to a port, and this is any of the ports you go to, but only the first time you go to that port, you, will get to draw one of these 3 cards. These are the port cards, and I'll talk more about these cards in a second. Draw one of the 3 available cards that's here, or take the top card off the deck. If you take one of these 3 cards, you'll replace it immediately with one off the top of that deck. You also, at that time, will be allowed to trade in the cubes that you've plundered and turn them into getting one of these big treasures. So if you have a green cube and a red cube, you can purchase the Topsail Island treasure, and it's worth 3 victory points. This one obviously has 4 different cubes you have to get, red, yellow, blue, brown, and it's going to be worth 6 victory points for doing so. Now these are the ones that are available right now, and they're open knowledge, and anybody can look at them. And you're not limited to just one of those treasure tiles when you get there. If you have enough cubes to buy several, you can buy several. When those run out, you will draw more from this deck here and add those to the available treasure tiles that you can claim. All right, so how does one actually move your ship? Well, this is a deck building game, but it isn't fairly standard, as far as deck building games go. You have your starting deck, and it's going to have 10 cards. You're going to take 5 cards off the top, and we're just going to go ahead and do that. And then you take those 5 cards, and that's going to be your starting hand. And these 5 starting cards are all going to have this like little wheel up here in the corner, and they're all going to be exactly the same. Everybody starts with the exact same 10 cards. So here you have, actually so you get one of these, a Sailing Master's Pirate, and has a 3 on there, meaning this is worth 3 movement points when you use it. A Lover is worth 1 movement point, and an Able-Bodied Seaman is worth 2 movement points. Now when you have these 5 cards in your hand, this isn't one of those things where you're like laying them all out, creating chains, things like you might be used to when it comes to deck building games. What you're going to do is you're just going to pick 3 of these cards to play, and you're just going to decide which 3 to play. Now I want to actually point out one thing. You'll see the Sailing Master's Mate has discard 1 card from your hand out of play written over here, and a 3. Whenever there is text written over to the left of the number, then you get to choose. Are you going to use it for the 3 movement points, or are you going to use it to discard one of your cards out of play? It's your choice, and you get to do that, but you can't do both. So keep that in mind. So you're going to pick the 3 cards. So let's just say I want to move a lot, and so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go 3 and 2 and 2, and that's going to be a total of 9, and I'm going to put those 3 cards out in front of me, and I'm going to use all 9 points, and now I can go ahead and divvy up those movement points among my ships that are out there. Now, there's a couple of things here. You want to be first to get to those cubes, right? And you want to also be first to get to here. But if you just race one of your ships all the way to the end, don't even worry about the other 2 ships, you get to the end, I got here first before anybody else. Great, super, awesome. But you know what everybody else has done while you've been playing? Is that they have been stopping and getting these cubes and purchasing treasures. And the amount of points you get, so this is like a 3-player game I've set up. The first player for each one of these tracks, and that's also the other thing too, the first player on each track is going to get 12 victory points for doing so. So if you've gone crazy and just went as fast as you possibly can to get here, and with only 1 track, yeah, sure, you're going to get those 12 victory points, but you're not going to get anything for the other 2, because the other 3 players have probably moved further down the tracks than you. And second player in this case is 5 victory points. Here in 5-player games, the first player gets 16, second 10, third 6, 4, 3. So you can see how those things can add up as they go. But anyway, so let's just, so you turn in those points and you're going to move them. So we could, so you can see it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. To get there, we can move into this thing. We can take these 2 green cubes. I don't think there's any of these that are going to be 2 green cubes that are going to be able to make it. But the first port I'd be able to get to is there. Now, also, I should mention, it doesn't matter which pirate ship got those 2 cubes. They're just considered to be mutual cubes. So it isn't like this pirate ship needs to make it to here and then they get to turn those 2 green cubes. If this pirate ship, on the turn, like made it to here and collected that, so I had those 2, and then went to this port, then I would have these full 3 cubes to use and try to figure out, and I don't even know if I have one here for 2 green cubes and a yellow, but let's just see. 2 green cubes and yellow, 2 green cubes and, no, I don't think I'm gonna, no, oh, well I can get Bloody Mary's treasure, so let's just say that. So if I went to there, I'd be able to turn in these 2, like so, and then I turn in these 2 cubes, and then I claim this treasure, and I'd have 3 victory points. So you can see that if you take the time to collect treasures and hit ports, you're going to do that. Now, the other thing is, so I captured those two places. So when I do those, what happens is I draw a card off the merchant deck, and so you see here we have a merchant captain, which is a 3. Obviously, that's going to help out. Now remember, I captured another one. So let's see what I got here. And now here we have a merchant which has a 2. Now, this is where, of course, if you're not familiar with how deck builders work, is one of the things you want to thin your deck. Get rid of those lubbers. So if you have this, you'd use like this other ability, and what that would do is, if you had one of these cards, you'd be able to get rid of this one. So you wouldn't have to gum up your deck with low numbered cards that you'd have. And as always, as soon as like you're asked to draw cards out of your deck and you don't have enough, you're going to take all the cards that you have and you're going to shuffle those up and form a new deck that you will draw your cards from. And that's how you recycle. So here we go, and we get 1, 2, 3. Let's see what we got here, just out of curiosity. I didn't get any of my new stuff, but then I'd have 5 cards, and I'd be able to hopefully recycle those soon. All right, so I went to the port, and every time you go to a port, you get to take one of these cards. I want to show you these cards here. And I kind of purposely did this just so I can show you some of what the cards do. But you have some, like here's the sailor from St. Kitts, and he has this ability, so he can move 2, but on the red track, which is the middle track, you can use that to move 4. So you can move your ship that's in the middle track, you could move that 4. Here's like the Grand Granada. It's like, it says move 2 extra spaces on the black track once per turn. Now the reason why that's important is look up here to the top right. You're going to see these decks. This is a card that you can play in front of you and just put in front of you like that. Now that card is considered to be in play, and you don't play it again. And for the rest of the game, as long as that card stays there, you're going to be able to move an extra 2 on the black track with that. All right, and I wanted to show you one last card where you can see here, and I should mention that like you can, if you don't want to use it for this ability, you can use it just as a normal card for those 3 points and use it each turn. All right, so here's the final card. You notice it has the Skull and Crossbones. Skull and Crossbones cards are cards that you will discard if you ever use the middle portion. So here it is. It says draw 2 cubes from the bag. You could use it for the 4 points, but if you wanted to use it for this ability to draw 2 cubes, from the bag. Oh, I just dropped 2. Well, so I dropped 2 out of there. Fine, whatever. So if you drew these 2, and you'd kept those, then this card would be discarded and you'd get rid of it and it would be out of the game. It doesn't go back into like the port deck or anything like that. It is gone. So let's just see what the next 3 cards are out of curiosity. We'll put them out there and see what they are. And just kind of show them to you. So here we have just a guy with 3. That's never a bad deal. Here's one of those play in front of you. Move 2 extra spaces on the red track once per turn. And, here's another small card. Draw 2 cards from the port deck. And you can use that ability just to draw 2 brand new cards. So you can see there's lots of different cards and things like that. And there are some kind of nasty ones in here. Let me try to find one. There is, close called Move To and move an opponent back 2 spaces. And I should mention that you have the option to move backwards as well if you want to. You don't have to always move forward. The only difference that is if you do start heading down one of these little pathways to get there, you have to move down those. But there's one, I really wanted to show you this. Like here's a card that's just it's just worth 2 victory points. So if you have that at the end of the game, it's not going to be any good having it in your hand, but at the end, it's going to be worth a couple of victory points. Here is one where it says, take 1 cube from a player when you land on their ship. So there's some interaction going on between the players. Now, the one I really wanted to show you is, there we go, here we go, Storms. Move the lead ship on 1 track back 10. That is huge, but but it is a card that gives you 4 movement, so you want to hold on to that and then maybe eventually play that when somebody's getting close to the end here. That's going to signal the end of the game, and you need a few more victory points so you can secure the win. As far as deck building games go, this isn't one of those like deck building games where you're like, okay, I need 2 villages and a smith and this and that, and you're trying to chain a bunch of things together. This is a game where you're just trying to make sure that you have the best possible cards in your deck at any one time, and occasionally thinning it down as time permits and as how you can. It is what I would describe as like kind of an introductory lesson into the world of a deck building game, tied on with a really, really cool theme and fantastic art. And when I played this with my family, we all had a great deal of fun, and even my hardcore gamers enjoyed it as well. But let me talk about that and more in my final thoughts. Alright, so there we go. That is Extraordinary Adventures Pirates. Now, and I'm kind of excited because when it says Extraordinary Adventures Pirates, I kind of hope that maybe they're thinking about doing other games, like Extraordinary Adventures, Captain Nemo, or Extraordinary Adventures to the Moon, or any kind of thing, because they definitely could make this game and just put it in different scenarios, put it in different situations, and then have different types of cards, have different types of mechanisms, things like that. And I just kind of dig the fact that this might be maybe the first of a few games like that. All right, so this is deck building, and I definitely have, if you've watched my channel, I said a lot of things about deck building, and I don't, Richard Ham called me out on it a little bit ago. He said, you seem to, really dislike deck building, unless it's, a game that, you like. And I said, well, that's kind of right, I guess. I mean, because for me, the deck building mechanism, I probably just played too much Dominion, if that's the world I was in. I remember when that game came out now, and what was it, 2009? Holy cow. It felt like that was the first time. It feels like yesterday that I was playing that in my garage with my buddies. But if that's, I might be misremembering the date, but for some reason I want to say 2009 for Dominion. But I played a ton of it. And I really had gotten kind of to the point where I was I kind of felt that they had done the best possible job they could with deck building, and it was going to be tough for anybody else to come along and improve upon that. And the only times that I found myself really interested in a game that had a deck building part of the game is when it wasn't the only thing about the game, if that makes sense. I don't like it when I don't want to have to sit there and think, okay, I need X% chance that I'm going to get this card and draw that card and give me this bonus and give me that bonus and chain this together with that together. I did that. I did that with Dominion, and I don't want to do it again. I guess I had my fun playing that type of game. Now, so the games that have deck building part of them that I really, really like are ones that have something else that brings it to the table that makes me want to be excited about it. Be it an interesting theme, be it the setup, be it the art, be it the level of play interaction. There's lots of different things that can make me get excited about the game that isn't necessarily the mechanism that is driving the game, if that makes sense. So, backtracking just a little bit, why do I enjoy this one? Well, there's a few things. Obviously the presentation and the theme, I've said that a few times, are just fantastic. But I like this because it's deck building, but it really isn't deck building, I guess, if that makes sense. Because you're not doing what I expect from a deck building game. You're not, trying to put different cards together that work just perfectly. You're not going through, this is my buy phase, this is my action phase, this is my discard phase. You're not doing that. You're just having 5 cards in your hand, you're picking 3 to play, you're putting those down, and you're drawing new cards and putting in your hand. Now you're going to pick another 3. And what it does is it presents me with a different type of decision making that I was not really attacked by, I guess so maybe a bad word, not attacked by, but it was presenting me with a decision that I wasn't really presented with prior to this when it comes to deck building. And what I mean by that is that it's one of those things where I like the fact that basically you're using up all your cards. And there's one thing that I really liked about it, and I liked that, like, strategies formulated in my head as I was learning the game. So there's that card that allows you to discard 1 card from your hand and get rid of it. Obviously, you want to get rid of those cards that have 1. You don't want to use those. You want to ditch them, get rid of them, because you have access to many other cards fairly quickly in the game. So, maybe you keep them around for 1 go through your deck, but after that, you're going to be getting rid of them. So you draw your hand, and let's say you get 2 of those 1 cards, and you have 2 of those 1 cards, and you have a 2 and a 4 and a 2. Okay, fine. You play that 2 and a 4 and a 2. You keep those 2 1s. You draw another 3. You're waiting to get that card that allows you to discard 1 of those and get rid of it. Toss it. Ditch it. Make it gone. And now, of course, then you get to go ahead and draw your full deck of cards after you're able to get rid of those, and you can continue on. And so, that was one of those things oh, that makes complete sense. That's why that ability is in there. And I liked that. I liked the fact that, I was kind of learning how these different cards kind of presented each other. Now, the other thing that I liked was, if a really, really good card shows up in the 3 cards, the 3 port cards that are up here, everybody at that point is ooh, I want that card, right? Especially if it's a card that lets you jam somebody pretty good, like that Storm card. You're going to be racing to the next port. Whatever ship is closest to port, you're going to be hustling your buttocks to get there so you can snag that card as fast as possible. And so, not only is there this huge race that goes on, but there's all these little mini races going on as well between you and you. It's sometimes tough to decide which one of my ships am I going to move this turn, which one am I going to focus on, which one am I going to get it going, which one am I going to get it rolling down these pathways first. And it had all these little tiny decisions that were really, really fun to make, but as a whole, then you get to the end, you realize that, oh my gosh, you've had all these little mini races that, when combined all together, we're all parts of this big giant race. And I mentioned, as I was talking about the you in the how to play portion, one person could just take 1 ship and just send them as fast as possible, but you're not going to win if you do that, because you're not going to get enough points, because you're not going to be cashing in your treasures. And that's another thing too, when you see somebody else has the right cubes for the treasure that you want, you're going to be racing to a port as soon as you possibly can to snag those tiles as fast as possible. So I like racing games in general. I like when I have a goal to get to. And in this situation, the manipulation of the race, how fast you can go, was presented in a mechanism that normally I'm pretty, it has to come at me with something interesting, or else I'm going to be okay, this is, I don't know, thank you, when it comes to a deck building thing. But this was most certainly just a game that had deck building in it, but it wasn't the part that made it fun. And I understand that might be hard to explain, because it's the mechanism, right? It's what drives the game. But for me, it was all the little races. It was all me trying to figure out when, especially when you're playing with 4 or 5 people, you're oh my gosh, come on, get to my turn. I want to be able to get there. I want to be able to turn in these cubes, or I want to be able to get there and get to that merchant and grab those cubes, or I want to be able to get to the treasure galleon first. And so there's this tension that goes on. And anytime I have tension in a game, I really find myself enjoying it, just because there's that release of tension, whether it is happiness or it's oh, I got beaten, but how am I going to come back and win again? And in both situations, that just makes for a fun time. Now, final thing, and I'll let you go if you haven't gone already, is that this is very rudimentary when it comes to the deck building process. So, if you're a person that just adores a certain deck building game, whatever that may be, and you're having trouble either getting your non-hardcore gamer friends interested in it, or you have somebody in your family or your friends that you want to introduce to deck building, and hopefully then you can use that as like a pathway to like something bigger and something more dedicated to that mechanism. This is a fantastic game that will give that good base level of interest into that world, and you could use it to springboard forward. And plus, it's just super family friendly. It's super cool to look at, and I think you're just gonna really, really love it, especially on those just kind of lighthearted gaming nights when you just want to kind of relax and have fun and enjoy each other's company. So there you go. That is Extraordinary Adventures Pirates. If you have any questions about it, ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. You be an awesome human being. Be the best possible version of you that you possibly can. I know it's tough. I know it is difficult to concentrate and be like positive, especially when there's all this other stuff in the world like kind of just wants to crush you down and just make you feel negative and cynical and everything like that. But the more you smile, the more other people will smile. And the more other people smile at you, the more you're going to smile at them. And I guarantee it that if you are the person that people want to be around, nothing but good will come to you. Alright, so with that, have an awesome day. Until next time.